Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who has helped me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Danny McCabe, who talks about his tumultuous marriage. He went through travails that go beyond what many of us can even consider. The way his wife treated him through arsenic poisoning, through accusations that were provably false, but he made it through that very tumultuous time. He actually wrote a book entitled The Third Gift, and he considers the treatment from his wife and the renewed life from that as a gift. It's almost difficult to think that that can be a gift, but the gift to which he's referring is a change in mindset, a new life to begin, and just starting over again. Marty, it's a phenomenal testimony of life. What are some things our listeners can gain from Danny?
It's an amazing story, what he went through. But like you said, he learned to reshift his thoughts, reshift his mindset, as you said. And then he stopped asking why, the why me, why am I going through this? And started believing that the Lord would bring him through all that he was going through. And he started working on his purpose. It's an amazing story of overcoming.
It is a great life testimony of going forward in spite of a major setback. Let's listen and learn together. Danny, it's great to have you with us. Our listeners are going to be very interested in learning from your life experience. By your description, you have experienced a tumultuous marriage that dissolved. Through that experience, you wrote a book, The Third Gift. You're on a life journey, and our listeners are going to be very interested in knowing, just from a top level, we're not here to focus on the past, but a little bit of a top level, what you've been through, but more importantly, how did you recover? How are you recovering? A lot of our listeners are going to learn from your experience. Danny, welcome aboard. Great to have you with us.
It's an absolute pleasure to be with both of you this morning. Thank you very much for sharing your platform with me and an opportunity to share my story.
Great. Danny, can you give our listeners somewhat of a 60,000-foot summary of your tumultuous marriage with the focus on how you have or are recovering from that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I would say in brief, very stable marriage for 17 years. And then the good Lord reached down and said, I'm going to put some significant adversity in your life. So I would rediscover myself through discovering all of the deception that my now ex-wife brought to the table in our marriage. So I would survive arsenic poisoning. I would survive a 9-day stay in a psychiatric facility. I would discover that everything that she had been accusing me of doing and emotionally abusing me, she was actually doing. So I would discover hidden prescription drug addiction. I would discover massive infidelity. So the journey was quite dark for 4 or 5 years, journey through the court system, alienated from my daughter on top of all that for 2 years, lost my father during the process due to dementia. So I was confronted with tremendous adversity. And on days that I couldn't walk, I would simply crawl. But the thing that kept me going was looking for first of all, gratitude, reshifting the mindset. And I think you guys talk about on a few of your other episodes, the concept of critical thinking, but sometimes hourly, sometimes daily and weekly, just reframing my mindset, because I'm a firm believer that the mind is where the battle begins. So it was adopting, I would call it a theory of relativity, where I lived out of my car in hotels for 3.5 months and lived with family through their generosity. But as I would meet folks on my journey, their stories would impact me to the point where I'd recognize I don't have it so bad. Okay. I survived the arsenic poisoning. I survived the psychiatric stay. I've got two beautiful children. I'm employed and my health is getting back on track. So it was a mind shift of really just counting my blessings on a daily basis.
I'm processing what you just said, Danny, is you may have experienced the ultimate in betrayal,
Yeah.
a wedding, a marriage you had hoped would maybe last a lifetime, but oh my gosh, you had all of these traumas occur to you. Is that somewhat of an accurate summary?
That is a very accurate summary. And the interesting thing, Ron and Marty, is I did not see it coming whatsoever. I had no idea where all this was coming from. So amidst all that is just the emotional confusion of what is going on and especially when I ended up in the psychiatric facility, it's like, how did I end up here? how did how did I end up here? And I thought I was at rock bottom when I spent the 9 days across two different facilities with a police transport in between. Little did I know that there was 4 years ahead of me. I had no idea what was coming at me. But the other piece of the mindset for me was faith, right? Making God more of a priority in my life, and quickly saying to him, quickly stop asking what I call the circular questions of why. Why is all this happening, and focusing on, I trust in you that you'll get me through it. You'll put good people in my life to get me through it. I stopped asking why it was happening and just said, let your will be done. I call it, certainly it's faith, but it's also measured optimism, recognizing that the end is going to come. I just don't know when it will be.
And so, Danny, you had the opportunity, if I could call it that, to wonder, why me, waller in your sorrow, so to speak.
Yep.
But there was a point in your life, it would seem, you had this turnaround experience. All right, I am where I am. It's happened, that is, has. I'm going to make the best of this. I appreciate your saying faith-based mindset. Lord, bring me through this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Maybe is what you said. Is this some of what the mindset, some of what you're thinking at some point in your life, Danny?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I had a choice to. I had a choice. The journey wasn't perfect. I want to be clear with your listeners that the journey wasn't perfect. There was a point in time where I self-medicated with alcohol for a while, and then I got to the point where I said, "All right, you've got to put this bottle down, and you've got to go take a walk." So for me, one of the things that I used to get through it was just forcing myself to get back into the gym and to exercise. I would walk up to 30 miles a week on a trail that was close to where I was staying. And it was just an opportunity to clear my head, clear my mind, and to refocus on what I had to do to get through the legal journey, what I had to do to restore the relationship with my daughter, who I had lost for 2 years. Like I said, the journey wasn't perfect, but it took effort to consciously make the decision each and every day to say, there's some good that's going to come out of this. And I stopped focusing on the whys and I looked at what I could learn from it. What I can learn from it, and where I'm at today, Ron and Marty, is still working on purpose. What is the purpose to all of it? How do I find true purpose in the pain of the journey? and I'm finding it. So, and with each life's transitions, you go through that, whether it's losing a parent, whether it's going through a divorce, whether it's your kids going off to college, there is a lot of emotion that comes along with that, and you have to ground yourself in finding purpose with all of it.
As you reflect on that, Danny, can you help our listeners determine what the turnaround was? Then there may not have been an exact point. It could have been a period of years, but at some point you describe rock bottom. You're going to critically think through this. I'm not going to waller in the mud, so to speak. How did you begin that turnaround to a better life, better thinking, better mindset?
It began real early on, and so the title of the book, as you graciously mentioned, is The Third Gift. So the first two gifts are my kids, and the third gift was an accusation that she made through our attorneys that I had given her a sexually transmitted disease. It truly was a gift, because it was that accusation that led me to discover all of the hidden secrets and deception and betrayal, and begin to become emotionally free. So that happened early on, to go, you've been given a gift. You've got a lot more pain ahead of you, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It was the start of the beginning of emotional freedom for me, recognizing that I certainly knew that everything she was accusing me of doing, I wasn't doing, but it was an opportunity for me to reestablish my character, reestablish who I was as a father, and who I was as a man. So that was early on. I still had another 3-4 years ahead of me. I didn't know it, but the journey through the court system, defending myself at a domestic violence hearing, you name it. I centered on the fact that I've been given an opportunity for a renewed sense of purpose, whenever that may come. And that was what I grounded myself in. That's what I continue to ground myself in today. Because had she not made that accusation, I do not know where I would be today emotionally. I don't know what my relationship would be with my kids. And I was given a gift. I was given a gift through greed. She wanted it all. She wanted to destroy me, at the same time maintaining her false sense of who she was. Yeah, I mean, she not only tried to kill me, but she also, when she couldn't kill me, she decided, I'm going to assassinate his character. So it was early on. And so the couple of key components to it were forgiveness. I forgave her and her mother very quickly. And then it was through that forgiveness, the journey of forgiveness, that I ultimately would find peace. But the peace part didn't occur until just a couple of years ago. And I found peace by writing her a lengthy letter, alerting her to everything that I had discovered about her deception and so forth. I laid it all out for her in a 4-page letter, and I signed the letter Love Closure. And since that day, I've really been able to find true inner peace and happiness.
Talk to us about forgiveness, Danny. I can envision you're thinking of your wife. How can you do this to me? You have falsely accused me. You've got documented lies, all these kinds of things. And everything, to one extent, is working against you. However, I will forgive you. Danny, how do you do that? How do you establish that mindset?
I was given a book early on through my therapist at the time, called Be the Man That God Wants You to Be. And in there it knocked me back on my feet, but in there was a quote that said, you only love God as much as you love the one you like the least. And I'll repeat that. You only love God as much as you love the one you like the least. And I had to take that to my therapist and go, what, explain this to me. And my therapist said, no, you're not supposed to, love her intimately and this and that, but it's about compassion, and it's about empathy, and it's about understanding that, she is a child of God as well, and recognize that he has delivered you from evil. He saved your life. He's delivered you from evil for a higher purpose. So again, I truly saw it as a gift. And that's why I think the title of the book couldn't be more appropriate. I was handed a new lease on life and an opportunity to get out of a broken marriage, and a marriage that was more than likely a lie. With the other interesting thing is, on paper, we were married for 23 years, and so I could have quickly looked at regret and wallowed in regret and self-pity and so forth, so on. But on some days you do, but there would be things that would snap me out of it. And the thing that would snap me out of it most of the time is remembering that my kids are going through this as well. So I was not, there were days when I wallow in self-pity, and there would be something that would happen to my son or my daughter that she would attack them, that I would find out about that. And then I'd go, okay, you were feeling sorry for yourself at a time that your son's being attacked in the home that I was still paying for. So I had to recognize that I'm not the only one going through this. My kids were going through this, and they endured their entire high school and college careers with it all.
I want to ask you a little bit more definition and application of the statement you read, and I'm going to transliterate a little bit. You will never love more than the person you love least. And hopefully I've interpreted that correctly. But there may be an application. I'm going to reword that to see if I'm interpreting that correctly.
Yeah.
If you love God more and you focus on what you want and what you want in your life, you can become that on which you focus. And that is, if we want to model and exhibit God's love, let's focus on that rather than the hate we are experiencing, the betrayal we are experiencing. Danny, I don't want to misinterpret, misapply, but that's one application I'm making of your life experience.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You didn't, no misapplication whatsoever. I think you nailed it. Yeah. And again, that's where the whole mindset piece comes into play, right? And mindset and the power of the mind is very well researched. Yeah, there have been many people that have said to me, I do not know how you can be as calm and as nice of a human being as you are today after all that you've been through. And my short answer to anybody that says that to me is, I've been given a gift. I've been given a gift.
That's a phenomenal attitude and a mindset. But let's be realistic, Denny, that it seems it took you, maybe 4 or 5 years to fully adapt that mindset?
The mindset of the gift thing happened probably a year into this journey. What took 4 or 5 years was to truly find a sense of peace. And one of the things that prevented me from finding the peace was, quite frankly, writing the book, reopening all those boxes, re-listening to the testimony of what I once thought were folks that loved me, assassinate me in court and lie about my character. So I had to open all those boxes as I wrote the book, and as a result of that, I experienced some PTSD. So it was the inner turmoil of writing the book, opening all those boxes, reliving the dark days again, that truly prevented me from really being centered in peace. But the gift, the mindset of the gift and the blessings that I received, that occurred early on. That occurred within 2 weeks of her accusation. I mean, I recognized that, man, had she never accused me of doing this, I would never have discovered all that I did. I wouldn't have discovered her hidden prescription drug addiction. I wouldn't have discovered her massive infidelity throughout our marriage. And I wouldn't have a sense of emotional freedom and recognizing that, okay, you were not responsible for the demise of this marriage.
It's very important for our listeners to know your experience. It sounds as if you're saying it was cathartic or therapeutic in part to relive a part of the past. You're not, I'm trying to come up with the right word. You're not reliving the past, but you're maybe recounting the past such that you can bring it to mind to forgive each individual point. And Danny, I don't want to misinterpret anything, but that, I think for our listeners, how you experience this is a very important aspect of your transformative experience.
Yeah. No, I think you're capturing it accurately. Yeah.
So
Um,
so
but
now,
it,
for the person who's maybe experiencing this type thing, for you, what it was useful, or at least it was not detrimental for you to relive a part of the past, but to recount. And our listeners are very interested in knowing, do I need to be very careful not to bring up the past with some people, or where are we with this? Because some people are going to be very reluctant to even approach the topic.
yeah, I think, there are a lot of people that say, don't look back, just look forward, right? But I would argue that when you do look back and you relive the past, you can truly recognize how far you've just come, how far you've come. It's you're driving down the road or you're taking a walk and you look back over your shoulder and go, yeah, I've walked quite a few steps here today. I've driven quite a distance here. So I'm a firm believer in looking back, helps you to see and recognize the strength, and helps you to recognize just how far you've come. The biggest issue for me with the PTSD was my time in a psychiatric facility, because I was in there with very young adults that legitimately tried to take their lives. And seeing up close the broken system and the fact that a lot of these folks didn't get any help, I would have occasional nightmares about them showing up at my house on my front porch with guns to their head, and I couldn't do anything about it. But again, at the same time, I looked at that and I thought, okay, that happened 3-4 years ago. Look how far you've come. It's an opportunity to continually reground yourself, and it strengthened my humility. So I've become more of a humble person, certainly more of a grateful person throughout the journey. But I would say your past, you can't tuck away your past. I mean, you can tuck it away, but you can't forget it. You're not going to forget it. And there are things that'll pop up occasionally, anniversaries of dates of things that happened that, again, I have to lean heavily on my faith and lean on this concept of gratitude.
Was there any aspect of your life where you wanted to isolate, not deal with it, stay away from people, embarrassment, and the like? And I have a very specific reason in asking you that.
Yeah, no, I would say the isolation occurred early on in the journey. And for those that are listening, I would say, please do not isolate. It was the biggest mistake that I made. I come from a large family, had a large professional network, decent group of friends. That first 9 months of it all, I didn't tell anybody about what was going on in our marriage. Had I opened up to somebody and shared with them some of the things that had occurred to me, they would have provided me a sense of objectivity that I had lost. So I would suggest strongly to anybody that's going through any type of difficulty, find somebody you can confide in, family, friend, whoever it may be, therapist, religious counsel, wherever you need to go, find an objective voice, because that is what my isolation enabled her to hollow me out, enabled me to, yeah, it enabled her and her mother, because her mother's in the subtitle, because her mother turned on me as much as her daughter did. And these were people I loved unconditionally, but it was the isolation where I lost all sense of objectivity. And it wasn't shame. There was no, I appreciate your comment about shame. There was never any shame for me of what I went through. Put your stuff out there on social media. You're going to have folks that'll weigh in, especially being a male, right? There's not too many books out there about men on the other side of the equation. So I'll hear oftentimes, man up, stop your whining and so forth, so on. But I'm on social media to promote the book, and I'm only promoting the book to support a couple of nonprofits, because I feel that I'm called to do something good with the very dark and evil situation that I went through. But the one thing that I did experience, and I don't know if shame transitions into anger or not, but I experienced a fair amount of anger at myself. And I'll explain that by saying I'm a reasonably intelligent guy. And then you start looking at it going, how did I allow her to do this? How did I allow her to assassinate my character? How did I allow her to isolate myself? Why didn't I look at all the information that I had access to through our insurance company's website sooner? A lot of why didn't I's. And somebody told me recently on another podcast that I was on, And I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've been afforded. She simply said it's all part of the healing journey, and you had to go to that place to get to this one, you know. So yeah, that's the one thing that I just recently had to work through, was occasionally just the anger of myself of like, man, why, how could you be fooled? How could you have been fooled for so many years? And how did you didn't do certain things that would have stopped this? And I'll give you a specific example. So a couple of months prior to being involuntarily committed, which I would later discover that she was writing letters behind my back to my doctors at the time. She set me up. She essentially set me up to be involuntarily committed. The exact letters are in the book. A couple of months prior to that, on a beach trip, her mother threatened to kill me. Threatened to kill me, suggested I was addicted to porn, suggested I was addicted to drugs, everything that her daughter was telling her, fabricating with her. She bought hook, line, and sinker. Had I gone to one of my brothers, I've got 5 brothers and 3 sisters, but had I confided in somebody about that event, I might have been able to short circuit all of it. But I didn't. And that's the mistake that I made, was, again, not telling anybody about what was going on. And it wasn't until I was locked up that my 2 brothers came to town, and that's when folks began to see what was going on in the marriage. So, and recognizing that something's not right.
What you just said is a very, very important dynamic. Some of us experience isolation. I just want to get away from it all, to try to forget it and so forth. And here's where I want to encourage our listeners to engage. And Danny, I want to pose this to you as a question. Would a person have needed to be specifically trained, psychiatrist, anything of that nature, to show we care? Danny, we recognize there's something different going on in your life. And what I want to encourage our listeners to do is engage, be a safe space. I'm not going to talk against you. I'm not going to use anything against you. But Danny, I just want to earn the right to be able to have a conversation with you. I want to spend more time listening than talking. But do I need special qualifications to do that? Do I need a shingle on the wall to do that? Or is it just knowing from the heart, I care about you?
That's it. That's it. That's beautifully stated. But knowing from the heart, no license required, I would say, but anybody going through a difficult time, I didn't expect anybody to solve my issues. I didn't know when it was going to end, or what, the subtitle of the book, My Dance with the Devil and Her Mother. The devil is real. And that's the other thing I had to get my head around. But folks going through adversity need to recognize that no one's going to be able to fix it. But for someone to your point, your brilliant point, somebody with a heart, somebody that can just be empathetic, somebody that can listen, and you feel heard. You feel heard. And the other important thing is that they may offer a question or two, or things that you are not thinking about, that you start thinking differently about your situation. But yeah, absolutely no qualifications required, other than being a decent human being with a heart that's willing to listen.
Let me ask you what symptoms you may have been exhibiting to people that people would have observed, to say that, well, Danny, I'm just sensing you're not who you used to be. You're quiet, you're looking down, or something. And some of us, I'm including myself in what I'm asking, Danny, some of us are never going to explain. We're not going to volunteer what's going on in my heart, my mind right now. You have to earn the right for me to want to verbalize this, because I don't know what you may use against me. I'm going through enough stuff right now. I don't want to add more turmoil to my life. Can you think back, Danny? What are some of those symptoms that someone may have been able to pick up on, that, hey, Danny, let me just, try to earn the right to talk with you?
Yeah, and I've got a vision. First of all, with me, it was significant weight loss. And this was even before we separated, and the weight loss was driven by the arsenic poisoning. But I used to go 250 to 255, And I lost 35 pounds in less than 6 weeks. Then it was 40, then it was 45. So there were friends around me that thought I was dying of cancer. And I would be evaluated for leukemia and early onset of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and things like that. And they couldn't figure it out. But it was just the physical change in appearance. I did become a little more withdrawn. And it was a good friend of mine that was at the house, because we had the house on the market. He said, I've been wanting to ask you this for weeks. Is there something we need to talk about? And yeah, because I was gaunt, I was rail thin. He could just see it in my eyes. And I opened up on this guy. Felt good to share all that was going on. I knew he couldn't fix it, but it felt good to get it off my chest and to have somebody, to your earlier point, somebody say, look, I'm here for you anytime you need me. And that same thing occurred with my brother and his wife, where they were there for me 24/7, just to support and to listen and to give you a hug or two or three or four when you needed it. But yeah, people started to recognize it. When the book came out, there were people that I work with. It's interesting. I just had a woman at work read the book, and she said, I remember when you were going through this, but I didn't know you well enough to ask you if everything was all right. And so I don't think you need to be super close to somebody to just simply say to them, are you okay? And I remember a complete stranger. I was coming out of a gas station, complete stranger, never met this man. I'm walking out, he's walking in. He just looked at me, stopped, and he said 4 powerful words to me that I will never forget. He said, may you find peace. And I said, why do you say that? I said, first of all, I said, thank you. I said, I needed to hear that, but what caused you to make that remark? He said, I could see the pain in your eyes. I don't know you, but I can see the pain in your eyes.
That is extremely important. 2 things. Is there anything we need to talk about? The open-ended question, to where you may or may not feel comfortable to advance that.
Yep.
And then may you find peace, because that person looked into your eyes and saw a void. I'm going to use that term.
Yep.
And he chose to engage with you, and you were not the kind of person you're going to punch him out because of anything like that, but rather maybe it was God working in your heart, just saying, nope, this person cares enough to engage with me. That's the kind of thing, Danny, I want to encourage our listeners, please engage with people. I just choose to believe when we do it with the right motive, the right mindset, the right heart, we're not going to offend anybody. And you're the best person to respond to what I just said.
Yeah, that's it. I believe there's a lot of, God dropped a lot of people in my life when I needed it the most. And I'll share one other thing. I was working with a colleague, and again, I was in the middle of it, working with a colleague down in Nashville, Tennessee. I got in his car, and there was a thing he had taped to his dashboard. He had it, always had it taped there. It's, and it was on the day that I needed to hear it. It said, God is after something. Let nobody judge you or define you but God. I didn't know it at the time, but it was that very day that my now ex-wife was being tested for sexually transmitted disease, that she would later accuse me, 3 weeks later, would accuse me of giving her. And I thought about that taped to that gentleman's dashboard, like, wow. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but God was saying, hang in there. He's after something. Let nobody judge you or define you but God. And so as I look back on those things, I'm like, he indeed was with me. And no different than the stranger at a convenience store that looked into my eyes and said, may you find peace.
Danny, you have a great story. Our listeners need to hear more from you. I want to ask you, would you consider another episode, maybe even multiple episodes, of digging further into what you now in hindsight can say you had a gift given to you, how you were able to make it through life in spite of the depths you went through? Because I know there are a lot of listeners who are right in the depth of this life. They need the encouragement. Others of us need to know how to effectively engage. My sense is sometimes you're not after someone to provide a solution for you, but
Right.
just an opportunity to listen, talk it out, and be willing to be a listening post. Those are some of the things I'm taking from what you're saying. And if what I'm saying is an accurate interpretation, our listeners need to know more about your life story.
I'd be happy to do it. I'd be honored to do it. It's part of one of the reasons why I wanted to share it, because as I told you early on, is I received a lot of inspiration from folks that didn't even know they inspired me. Just by sharing their stories enabled me to remain grounded in the fact that, okay, you're going through hell, but you don't have it as bad as this person or that person. And I call it, the theory of relativity. Everything is relative. When you think you've got it bad, others have it far worse. And that was advice that I gave my kids along the journey. As I said, count your blessings. I know this is awful for you, but you need to develop a mindset that you don't have it as bad as many, many others out there, and reminding them of all the good things that they had in their life. But yeah, I'd be honored to come back anytime.
Danny, you've got the attitude, the mindset. We together will grow through this. That's a message our listeners need, many of us need together, and we learn from your life experiences. Danny, we look forward to continuing your life journey in other episodes and learning just how we can grow through life tragedies.
Thank you very much. I look forward to chatting with you again.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share our and our guests' life experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, MARTY, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.